Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. In less than 24 hours, it would have been 2 years since this current administration at the federal level came on board. And one of the areas that we'll be focusing on today on the program is issues around security or insecurity. Well, while we might say that this administration has made some progress in the areas of security, other issues still persist. And on the program today, we intend to take a look at some of the areas this administration has scored some achievements and other areas needing massive consolidation. Our guest is joining us via Zoom this morning, and together we'll be taking a look at 2 years of Tinubu administration focus on security. Join us this morning as a welcome Abraham John Onoja. He is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Management and Leadership. And today, he'll be sharing his thought with us on the program as a national development strategist. Thank you, Abraham, for finding time to be with us on the program today.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
Right.
It's truly my pleasure.
All right, let's start this way. 2 years of the Tinubu administration. So if we were to take a recap of what this administration has done in the last 2 years, taking into cognizance of where we are coming from under the previous administration, how would you score Mr. President and his team?
Okay, thank you so much for that beautiful question. Before giving you his score, but I'd like to start by saying that Nigeria currently stands at a volatile crossroad, right? One marked by the promise of obviously renewed leadership and the persistence of decade-old insecurity.
Right.
And this is to say that when the president, that's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, assumed office on May 29th, 2023, trust me, the expectations were fundamental. One is to arrest the tide of insurgency. Obviously, banditry is there and separatist violence across the country, and to restore public confidence in the Nigeria state's capacity to protect lives and properties. Here we are, 2 years into the administration, right? I'd like to say that some things have been achieved significantly, even though there are some other things that have not really gone well. But let's start by looking at what has done well.
Right.
First, there has been reduction in terrorist activities. If you look at it critically, compared to when during the President Jonathan's administration or former President Buhari's administration, there has been some level of decline in the rate of terrorist activities. And looking at it from the Vanguard News report that was shared, the administration has reported a decline in terrorist incidents. For instance, in 2023, prior to the inauguration, out of 394 attacks by non-state actors, right, only 64, which is approximately 16.24%, if I'm correct, occurred under the Tinubu administration, indicating significant efforts in trying to combat terrorism and insecurity. Let's move on to military operations, right? Operations such as Harden K, Safe Haven, have targeted insurgent groups. Obviously, we already know Boko Haram, the bandits, leading to the neutralization of some threats and the surrender of a good number of insurgents.
Okay.
Right. So that's the second one. And that has, I mean, significantly should be commended. Right. The third thing I would say is increased defense spending. The 2024 budget, for instance, allocated a significant portion to national defense, internal security, obviously purchase of arms and munitions, amongst quite a lot of things that was done. Obviously, that's reflecting the administration's prioritization of security concerns.
Right.
Because don't forget, that was one of the reasons or one of the things that the citizenry were looking up to the president to quickly address, to quickly come to the aid of people in that particular aspect. Because security borders on everybody. Security affects every single thing in the country, from agriculture to industrialization to development. amongst a host of other things, down to even investor confidence in the country, because nobody's going to go to a place where there's insecurity. I mean, one day you're putting in funds, this next thing somebody's destroying it or is kidnapping your workers, you're having to pay ransom and all of that. So, yeah, there's been increased defense spending.
Okay.
I'm going to leave it at this big,
those three
broad
areas,
point.
okay? Right.
Yes, those three areas. Yes, I'll leave it at that for
now. Okay.
Right, but then to further give more clarity to these things, right, we're going to look at it in this way. The Northeast, for instance, I mean, despite claims of, several victories and all of that by security forces, if you look at it very well, in recent times, Boko Haram and INSWAP, which is the splinter group, have been fully subdued. But their operations recently in Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, Katsina, among some of these other places,
right,
they persist.
Okay.
With INSWAP now demonstrating increased coordination and reach, because the insurgents continue to launch ambush, raid military outposts, and terrorize civilians. In some places, farmers cannot even go to their farms.
Right.
Some places, they need to pay taxes. Some places you go and then they tell you a portion of your land is now our own, but you need to cultivate it. But then the produce, the harvest is our own. Or sometimes they don't even give you that option. They just take your life and all of that. They off you.
Okay.
So those are considerations of things that should be looked at or looked into.
Okay, Abraham.
At the end of the
Abraham, sorry to cut you short. Perhaps, of course, that conversation will be those areas that we need to consolidate on, because now there is a resurgence, like you did mention. But I'm sure that Ajibola has a question based on your first response, Ajibola.
All right, Abraham, you said we have recorded some level of success so far in different parts of our security network. In those areas where we are lagging behind, what are the factors that are responsible for these? Is this that there are no interagency collaboration or funding, or these military guys do not have enough hardware to tackle these terrorists?
It's multifaceted. And what do I mean by that? We've had instances where security personnel have come up boldly, not even minding the consequence, to say, hey guys, we are really underpaid. Some places they'll tell you, oh, there are sabotage. Some places they'll tell you, oh, how did these people know we were coming? Meaning that there were spies or moles internally. Right? These are issues you must tackle at the end of the day. How do they know what is being hatched in the kitchen of the military intelligence or in the military hierarchy? How do they get those information? How do they get to know some of their locations? How do they know where weapons are kept, where arms and ammunition are kept? How do they know these things? Right? So that's what I'm saying is multifaceted, right? You have the manpower. You have people who are ready to defend their fatherland, even if it will cost them their lives. You have people, you have credible officers who are willing to do all it takes to restore order in the land.
Right.
But then amongst those same people are people who are sworn to also destabilize the nation or destabilize the country for whatever reasons it is, even though not in the best interest of the nation. But then you have those moles and spies who continue to sabotage the efforts. And don't forget, these are people's husbands, these are people's brothers, sisters, wives, uncles, aunties, amongst the host of others that are doing their best. So I don't want to say that the military are not trying, they are doing their best.
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, you can listen to when the governor of Borno State was speaking recently, and he spoke about how these guys are regrouping. If not for the fact that the military are able to step in and quell some of these attacks, trust me, lots of states would have been overrun by now.
Right.
Clearly, you know now that even though the military has debunked this severally, but then reports coming from the field still show that some small places are still under these people's control.
True.
It might not be a local government, but it might be wards, it might be bushes, it might be farmlands and all of that these people are solidly controlling at this point in time.
Okay.
And that continues to beg the question of how far the military will need to go or step up their game to ensure that these guys are completely eradicated, right? Are completely removed from Nigeria at the end of the day. Because Nigeria, like you know, used to be very peaceful. I schooled in the north, right? And there were times where I could peacefully travel after my exams from Zaria down to Abuja. I can leave Zaria, say 8 p.m., 7 p.m., 9 p.m., and get to Abuja, say 11, 12, and get to my house. But you and I know that's not the case today.
Right.
So people even can't move around freely. People can go about their businesses freely and all of that. So those are some issues. But like I have mentioned earlier, there are internal issues, there are external issues.
Okay.
Some of those internal issues borders on the fact that you have mold, you have spies. The government needs to step up. The government needs to motivate these guys. The government needs to obviously support more with arms and ammunition and all the tactical support that is required to be able to provide solutions to this problem.
Okay.
And then there are also external concerns. What do I mean by external concerns? What's his name? Mr. Christopher, the current head of the Nigerian army, he came up recently and said, yes, Musa, he came up recently and said that, oh, these guys get foreign aids, get foreign funding, meaning
support.
that there are vested interest. Yes, vested support to see that people destabilize the country for whatever reasons or gains, like I keep saying. Right? So those people need to be fished out, right? Those people need to be brought to book. Do you need to work with foreign organizations like Interpol, amongst a host of others, to be able to find out or fish those people out? You need to do so.
Right.
Like, I mean, there are clips where we can see choppers dropping or coming down in the middle of the bush or somewhere in the forest and discussing with people.
Right.
Are those choppers or do they get clearance? How do they get into our airspace without being detected by the Air Force or our whole military intelligence and all of that? Where are they coming from? Where are they going to? How are funds being moved from place to place? Those are the places where we then need to up our game in terms of investment to see how we're able to fish out these culprits. Because trust me, I can bet you that we can speak on this from now till tomorrow. But then if just it's not done in ensuring that we tackle the root causes of these issues
will continue.
We're just going to keep moving in circles. Okay. Just to also wrap that bit up, we also need to look at some of the underlying factors. They keep regrouping. They keep getting people to join them. Why? Is it because there's hunger in the land? Is it because, people can't go about, so they promise them heaven and earth or promise them peanuts, and because of that, people are willing to go out of their way to join these guys. So those are the places we need to now channel our energy in trying to find out those root causes, address them from that point, to be able to provide solutions to those societal issues. Yes.
Abraham, let's quickly, we've talked about the resurgence of Boko Haram, ISWAP, and of course issues around banditry and kidnapping. We also have a strong issue with farmers' herders clashes, and that is also wiping communities, not only in the Northeast. I presume, I might be right, I presume you're from Benue State by the name Onoja. Am I correct?
I'm from Kogi State.
Yeah, from Kogi. Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah,
so, I know that Benue is also one of those states, of course, that is not left out. Even some parts of the southeastern states have been attacked daily by the herders. And so how do we get out of this particular situation? We do know that most of the herders have the nomadic nature, but how do we begin to get it back into their subconscious that as much as you're moving around, you do not need to get into people's farmlands and be as destructive as you are to the extent that you're taking lives? So what do we need to do as a country when it comes to the issues surrounding the herders?
I'm going to paint a story, a vivid one, before giving my recommendations on that. Growing up as a very small boy, we used to have a farm back then, somewhere in Abuja. And I remember very well that we used to have these Fulani guys, they come around. In fact, back then, my parents can confidently say, hey, sit down with these people while we are clearing the grass over there, or planting over there, or doing this and doing that over there. We were very, very much at peace with each other.
Okay.
There was plenty of land for you to be able to feed your cattle. We had a lot of farm, a lot of land to be able to plant our crops, and everybody was fine. we didn't encroach into everybody's spaces, but let's look at it from this point. Climate change has significantly impacted some of these things, right? For instance, the Lake Chad area, among some other river basins in that area, have dried up there in the north. So they then have to move down to these other parts where you can find greener pastures to be able to feed their cattle. And I'm not holding brief for anybody, but that's a bit of a context.
Okay.
Looking at the issue where farmers and herders clash now, right? That should not have even been
reason
the
in the first
subject.
place.
We had stuck to that particular format, but now you have people clamoring for grazing reserves or have cattle grazing or have ranches, where people keep their flocks and feed them and all of that. Because of the number of lives and properties that have been lost due to this conflict, for me, I would solidly recommend that the government look at this by setting up these ranches where people can put their flocks and feed them. That is one. But then I can't say that you should stop the movement of people. You should stop the movement of businesses and all of that simply because we are protecting one interest against another. But I'll confidently say that should be one way of solving that problem. I solidly want to believe ranches would easily solve that problem this day. Because, you don't need to encroach in anybody's farmland. Millions are invested, millions are destroyed, women are raped, people are kidnapped, people are maimed and killed in their farmlands and all of that. So we just need to bring some level of sanity to that space. And when we do so, I can tell you that that will significantly address that particular problem. Obviously, we can do that from the angle of policy by passing that through the National Assembly and see how that can become law, where people need to put their cattle within their own their ranches and all of that. That I would say would be able to readily address this issue. And then obviously you know that there are good ones and there are bad ones. Not all herders move around with machetes or move around with AK-47s and all of that. There are also people marauding or masquerading or hiding under that umbrella as herders to perpetrate these crimes. Those persons also need to be addressed. Those persons need to be identified. Those persons need to be fished out. And those persons need to be brought to book as well, because it's more like giving some persons a bad coloration, whereas it's a few of them that are the terrible ones. Because up till date, I still know some Fulani guys who are friends. I still know some persons, and this is me not trying to say that it is persons from some particular region that are doing this. Because, you have seen in several other regions in the southeast, north central, southwest, where people hide as though they are herders and perpetrate crime. So I just want us to be able to have that to be able to distinguish between who is who at the end of the day. So being able to identify them, being able to bring the perpetrators to book is another way of ensuring that you're not just painting Peter for Paul or punishing Paul for
so
Peter.
Proper profiling is what you're also suggesting here.
Exactly. Yes.
All right, Abraham, you cited internal and external factors as one of the problem of insecurity in Nigeria. Would that external factor include the porosity of our border? That's one. And then lately, when the governor of Borno State, Zulu, met with Mr. President, he did say that we should not limit our approach at fighting insecurity to kinetic approach alone, that we should also involve non-kinetic. Would you also suggest that we embrace that as well?
Okay, so, for a state governor to say that, you know that they have explored quite a lot of options or ways in trying to prefer solutions. Borders in Nigeria or Africa, you know that you cannot man all of your border entry points. And what do I mean by that? We have look at the land size of Nigeria. You can't man all of the border points. It's not possible, right? But then, even in advanced countries, most of these places, you can enter from one little community to another community, and you've entered another country, you've entered another state, and all of that. So people are going to move. It's just that we advocate for people to move in the right way. But then looking at it from a more coordinated point of view, I would first say that You see, vigilantes play a lot of roles in quelling some of these things. And then looking at this recommendations, let me bring it from this point of view. I want to first feel that I was going to recommend the establishment of a National Security Coordination Council, where the president chairs it because he's the chief security officer, and then he gets maybe daily, weekly briefings on between the military, police, DSS, and state government.
Sorry, Ibrahim, is that not the current role of the NSA?
Well, that's okay if the NSA is there at the moment, but I'm just saying that if that council is there, that council needs to then step up with the level of intel that is received, what they do with those intels, and how they go about ensuring coordination with all the relevant stakeholders in preferring solutions. Because if that council's effect was felt, I wouldn't be saying this.
Okay.
But then a lot needs to be done in that space. The second is implementing community or state policing, because that frameworks with proper funding, oversight, and training, especially in regions with unique security dynamics, would help a lot in solving that problem. Another thing I would readily say is invest in human intelligence, right, and local vigilante networks to support surveillance and maybe information gathering in hard-to-reach areas. That is their territory.
Okay.
That is their terrain. Most of them were born there. They grew there. You can't know those forests more than them.
Right.
You can't know those regions, and you can't know that terrain more than them. Invest in those people. Empower them. If they need training, train them. If they need to be supported, support them. Obviously, you can see how much they're trying. Recently, I saw how I think the Niger State governor went to visit one of the places, the sites where you had the conflict, you had the attack from the bandits, and they attacked the local vigilante guys. He went down there to where it happened.
Right.
He did an on-the-spot visitation. Obviously, that gave morale, that gave support to the guys who are still holding fort and all of that.
Okay.
Means that those guys play a vital role and should be supported. Then we need to develop a national rehabilitation, a proper one, right? Rehabilitation program, one that is not just region-based, but national-based.
Okay.
Then we need to also strengthen cybersecurity infrastructure, which is to monitor online radicalization and financial networks of terror cells. That needs to be strengthened. We also need to engage in structured dialogue with separatist groups and marginalized regions through maybe regional peace commissions and economic empowerment program. Obviously, they'll tell you that empowerment programs are there, but we're not feeling them. So a lot needs to still be done in that space. We also need to prioritize accountability and civilian protection in all military operations, which is enforced consequences of security forces involved in human rights abuses, because once that happens, people are not even comfortable or confident enough to come and give you intelligence. They don't see you as now a partner, but then they see you as an enemy, as a foe.
Right.
We also need to consistently convene a national security summit, which is to involve obviously the traditional rulers, youth groups, women groups, civil society organizations, religious leaders, to build a truly Nigeria security roadmap.
Okay.
That way, you are able to get a robust input and be able to chart a positive course forward at the end of the day. That's very realistic. That's very practicable. All stakeholders are involved.
So yesterday, earlier this week, Mr. President also did talk about the creation of forest guards, or the deployment of forest guards into especially Borno State, as well as expedited delivery of arms and equipment to northeastern military formations. How much impact will this have when it is finally done?
That is going to have a huge impact, I can tell you for free, because that seemed to be the enclaves of the bandits. That seemed to be the enclave of the terrorists. That seemed to be their hiding place. So taking the battle to meet them in the bushes and the forest, I think is a good way to go.
Okay.
Also, it's not just having these robust plans, ensuring the coordinations are done right. We have had instances where military supplies are diverted. We have had instances where military supplies are siphoned. That process needs to be properly supervised to ensure that it is coordinated properly and the delivery is superb. I can tell you for free, for free and for sure that is going to have very significant impact in bringing peace and stability to the northwestern region at the end of the day. But then leaving it to just one state alone, for me, I could have said that they could have just started with the whole of the northeastern forest first.
Yes.
Because that place holds a lot. You can't pursue them from one state forest into another state forest and think you have won the battle. No, you only just pick from another place that is your blind spot at that point in time. But having it coordinated across all of the states simultaneously would be, but also there should be regional cooperation.
Okay.
You cannot do that alone from your end and think you have won. Like I said earlier, you need to do that with our neighbors as well. Cameroon, Niger, Chad,
Mali,
and all of them. They need Mali. The whole of that, and you need to have a good joint
rapport, a good joint patrol system.
Yes, as long as that is not done, because that way we have seen that happen previously in I think Jonathan's government,
right? We had the JTF.
Saw that happen. Yes, JTF, and it was successful. So that needs to be strengthened as well. So you have the policy in place, you have the foot soldiers in place, you have proper coordination to then ensure that everything goes on well. Even if there are things that were not properly captured at the point of conceptualization and implementation, the moment you have this process properly manned and properly supervised, those blind spots can quickly be corrected at the end of the day. But don't forget, once you work with all of the relevant stakeholders, traditional rulers, vigilantes, youth group, among all of that, they can also offer input. They can support you in doing the work, because you're moving soldiers from one place to another place. They cannot know all of those terrains properly. But then with the help of those local support they will get, they'll be able to, the impact will be far-reaching and positive.
Okay, Abraham, in all of this, before we let you go this morning, what should be our role as Nigerians now? I remember reading through what happened or how these people came about. Lakurawa in Kebbi State. The people saw them initially, but unfortunately for them, they did not give information to the security agent. So what role do we have to play as Nigerians in helping government as well?
Well, for me, I don't want to believe that they saw them early and they didn't do the needful. This morning, while preparing for this, I was reading a report from Benue where some bandits used, is alleged though, used the motorcycle of a security operative or security personnel to perpetrate crime. When it was reported, that person still used his power to usurp justice. You see, when that happens in places, people don't then have confidence to come forward with intelligence. We've had instances where people come forward with those intelligence and reports and were later attacked, or where their identities were leaked or released or shared with the perpetrators of this crime. But then, like I said, we are all about forging a path for peace. We're all about forging a path for a joint shared prosperity as a nation. So all hands must be on deck. I don't want us to dwell so much in the past, but be forward inclined or forward driven, where we're looking at, how the future should look for myself, my family, my community, my state, and the nation at large. Once you look at it as though you're part of those who would prefer solutions to that problem, everybody then becomes a stakeholder. But ultimately, you know that Nigeria's path to peace and stability still depends on visionary leadership. And President Tinubu alone cannot do it. All hands must be on deck. The security operatives and security guys are doing their work. The local vigilantes are doing their work. All of the relevant stakeholders, the traditional rulers are all doing their work. That way, we are all able to collectively do our part in bringing peace to the country.
Abraham, in 30 seconds, I'd like for you to quickly address this issue. So we've always concentrated on the military. Meanwhile, the police should actually be the first port of call. So what do we need to do about inadequate policing and the slow justice system in the country? Since you also mentioned earlier that there are no consequences for perpetrators of this heinous crime. So what do we need to do addressing this issue going forward?
The moment you mentioned police, my heart skipped it. that arm of security architecture needs to be revamped seriously. You can't have police that are still, I mean, and this is me not condemning everybody, but there are still things that they do that are anti-democratic or anti-people-centric.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? These are just some things that they just need to be revamped, really. I won't come on air and make some allegations.
Right, so better policing
and all of
system.
Yes, they need to be better supervised. They need to when I see police in Nigeria, I see police in other parts of the country, I mean, you will see that it looks like they're world apart. But then a lot needs to be done. They need to be empowered. They need to be motivated as well. They need to be trained. There's just a lot that needs to be done in that space.
Okay.
But then the police are supposed to be the first port of call. They are first responders. They should be the first people who come on the scene. It is only when
they cannot handle it anymore.
They can't handle it. That's when the military is called in. But then that same military, they need to be done, empowered. They need to be motivated.
Okay.
They need quite, in terms of incentives, to be able to help them or to stay motivated while addressing our security challenges as a nation.
All right, we'll have to leave it here this morning. Thank you so much, Abraham John Onoja, National Development Strategist, for speaking with us on the conversation today.
Thank you so much once again for having me at the studio today. Yes.
All right, that's the much we'll take on this side of the table this morning. Of course, Abraham has talked about what this administration has achieved in the last 2 years and areas of consolidation going forward. We do hope that we'll be able to engage him sometime soon again to see where we are as a nation in terms of our security issues. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, Adebimpe will be here with her Lagos conversation.
The views expressed on this program do not represent that of the producer, management of Lagos Television, or the Lagos State Government. They remain the perspectives of those expressing them. Thank you for staying with Lagos Television.